Here's a 10 I owe you.
Good, now we're all even.
Honey, how about the $20 you owe me?
Oh, yeah? Well, I only got 10, so here's 10, I owe you 10.
Thanks. Hey, Mo, you owe me 20. Well, here's 10, I'll owe you 10.
You owe me 20.
Here's 10, I owe you 10.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you. Here's the 10 I owe you.
Good, now we're all even.
Honey, how about the 20?
Now, tragically obvious that reasoning with the bitch is not gonna work, Tom. You have to hit her.
I'm an assistant district attorney, for Christ's sake.
Tom, you have to get past this.
It's okay, Paget. Really?
See, Paget, she just gave you permission.
Stop!
See that? Which has no problem hitting you.
Right, lady. Okay, look out!
You're definitely allowed by law to hit her now, Tom. It's self-defense.
Okay?
Yes, Apple, you are in rare form.
Hi everybody. The increasing need for food leads people to new agricultural techniques and technologies. There are many methods to increase sustainability in agriculture. Here we will talk about this in the video. Let's see together what the result is when farming is done without soil. Please like and subscribe the video. Hydroponic cabbage and lettuce growing. The system is a closed growing system on deep water. Hydroponics focuses on short cycle crops that can be grown on deep water, like herbs, cabbage, and lettuce. The cups are placed in a staggered pattern, which results in a 10% higher occupation per float. The hydroponic float is designed in plastic, which makes it easy to clean. The floats will float on the water, which makes it easy to transport them with minimal effort. When the product is ready to be harvested, it is automatically transported to the central packing line in the harvest area. The system enables production in a safe and controlled environment. So what do you think about it? Write in the comments. Aeroponic potato growing technology. One of the techniques that started to be applied in soilless agriculture is the aeroponic production system. Applications for aeroponic potato production are becoming increasingly common in the world, especially in China, Korea, and India. Aeroponic potato production is a system that is generally applied in the form of fogging in an environment without light. Aeroponic potato production is said to be much more advantageous in some ways compared to classical methods. Also, this potato can become very popular because it can be produced every day of the year. Fresh forage growing. This system produces high-energy fresh feed on a commercial scale at the touch of a button. Also an advantage is it doesn't need any soil at all. Growing indoors provides excellent growing conditions and allows plants to go from seed to nutrition in just 6 days using less water and 0 pesticides. This system is very useful for farmers with cattle and sheep. It is also low in cost. Hydroponic tomato growing. Let's see how tomatoes are grown by the hydroponic method in high-tech greenhouses. GrowDan is absolutely ideal for tomato growers who want to realize a generative or vegetative crop response through targeted control. The hydrophilic fiber structure enables the slab to absorb water more easily. The wide control range and evenly distributed water content provide a healthier root system and extra strength. GrowDan sheet is the ideal solution for tomato cultivation.
Action. I see you looking at my pee.
Why? I'll tell you why. Because your brother is the embodiment of the can-do, roll-up-your-sleeve spirit that made this country great. He never gets discouraged, he goes after what he wants, and he doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. And if the day should come when any man, no matter how humble, can't go out there and soil the loins of some hot little dancer, well, I don't want to live in that America.
What's up everyone, welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Corey and this is Inside Hydro. So as you can tell from the title, today we are back on our DWC systems and we're going to be designing and making a new RDWC system for my veg area. So I've talked a little bit about building DIY systems on the channel before, but it's always been quick and kind of half-assed, for lack of a better word. So today we're going to dive deep and go through the entire process together. We have babies that have just been sprouted in rock wool and they need a home to go to. So if you've been a subscriber, you know we've already had a system in this spot. Things were getting kind of old and beat up, so I thought it was best to just start over with a brand new system. So before we jump into it, can everybody go down, make sure you are subscribed, and while you're down there, please drop a like on this video if you don't mind. Alright, so in order to explain this process correctly, we're going to have to bring it way back to just a completely empty slate. So first things first, we are going to need our buckets for the system. This is going to be a 6 plant, 7 bucket system. Normally I use round buckets, but I was in Lowe's and they had these square ones, so I grabbed these instead. They only had 6 of these, so we have a slightly bigger one for the control/res bucket. The round buckets do work and you can get a good seal on them, but they have a tendency to crack. Obviously with a square bucket it's much easier to get a good seal. It's a flat side, so we shouldn't have that problem. On top of that, we have our 1-inch barbed bulkhead fittings. This is what we'll use to connect each bucket. Now before you go crazy in the comment section about this only being 1 inch and it's going to get clogged and all that, let me explain myself. The reason I'm only using 1-inch piping is because this is for my veg system. I have a separate system I use for flowering with bigger piping, as you can see here. So the plants are only young in the veg system and they're generally small, so they're fine without having large piping. If these plants were going to stay in here for both veg and flower, 100% I would recommend using 1.5 inch plus size piping. Reason being is because once you get a large root structure, things can begin to get clogged and you can run into problems with small piping or tubing. For this application and situation, the 1 inch is perfectly fine. If you plan to use your system like this for veg and flower, all you need to do is just change the size of the fittings and the pipings you use. 1.5 inch to 3 inches is good. Everything else in this video will still be exactly the same. But I know some of you guys want to see a PVC system build, so after this run we'll redo the flower system with bulkheads and square buckets as well. So if PVC is what's confusing you, we'll tackle that one as well very soon. Today it's a bit simpler because we are using 1-inch vinyl tubing throughout. The vinyl tubing we'll use to connect each fitting on each bucket. Then of course we have our net pots, air stones, air pump, and air tubing. We also have a sub pump we will use for circulation. And we have our 1-inch T's and elbows to connect the tubing. So that is pretty much everything we need for supplies. As far as tools go, you're going to need a drill or an impact, a hole saw sized for your fitting, RTV so you get a good seal, sandpaper, a razor, a marker, a tape measure, and a drill bit. So not much, it's fairly easy. I will link everything you need in the description below. Alright, let's get started. So first things first, we want to get everything laid out so we have some idea of what the system is going to look like. I already know how I pretty much want it, but I want it to be as centered as possible. So this is a 5x5 tent here. We want the system to have 2 columns and then a control res off to the right side. So I think this is more or less what we're looking for. Now that I have a visual representation, I'm going to write it down on paper. That way I have the dimensions nicely laid out, and when it comes to cutting the tubing, we'll already know what we need. Now your system doesn't necessarily need to be this shape. There are many other layouts to choose from. Here are a couple different layouts that we talked about in the previous video for different size spaces. Alright, so we have our diagram. We know what we want. Let's start drilling out our holes in the buckets. Each bucket, aside from the res, is going to have 1 hole on either side. The res bucket will just have 1 single hole. So in order to ensure the holes are pretty much in the same spot on each bucket, we're going to use this center dot underneath to center us on the side, and then we're going to mark up 1.5 inches on each bucket. We want our fitting to be as close to the bottom as possible, but at the same time you can see they have a lip on them, so we need to make sure there's enough clearance from the bottom to screw the bulkhead on. So I'm going to go around and make the same dot on all the buckets on each side, and then we can drill out our holes. When it comes to drilling out the holes, it's generally simple. Now that we have our center dot, all we have to do is line the bit up with the hole we marked, get the bit to pierce the bucket, and then we can drill on through. So do your best to ensure you're going straight and not at an angle up or down. With the vinyl tubing systems, you have a bit more wiggle room since the tubing can bend, but for like a PVC system, it's a little bit more important to make the hole straight. So we have this one drilled out. You can see right through either side, but you can also see that the hole has a bunch of leftover plastic and that the cut wasn't that clean, which is fine. Sometimes they come out cleaner than others. Nonetheless, we want to get a good seal on this hole, so we're going to clean it up with the sandpaper just around the lip a few times to get rid of the extra junk. That way we have a smooth surface for the bulkheads to seal onto. So we'll go around sanding everything very lightly, and we have a few more things to drill out. Now our air stones need to be in the bucket, so we're going to drill a 1/4 inch hole on the top of each bucket so our antline can fit in. This is something I always used to forget, so I'd have the line getting crimped under the net pot, so don't forget, this is very important. Alright, we have the bulk of our job done. We have plastic everywhere, so let's get this place cleaned up first. Not only around the tent, but make sure to get all the extra plastic out of the buckets as well. Alright, we're all clean. Let's lay the buckets back out and get our fittings installed. So these fittings called for 1 1/4 inch hole, and that's what we drilled out. But I've noticed they have to be screwed through the buckets, which isn't always the case, I've found. So don't worry if yours slides right through. To be honest, I've had fittings that screw through and I've had fittings that just slide in. I'm honestly not sure what's better, but I know this RTV will seal us up regardless. Plus there's a rubber gasket on one side of the fitting as well that will also help. So once we stick the bulkhead through, we want to give a nice bead of RTV on the outer side. And don't worry, this RTV in particular is fish and food safe. After the RTV is on, we can go ahead and screw on our front piece. Now, very important, be careful not to over tighten the cap of the bulkhead. They really only need to be a little bit more than hand tight. If you crank them on too much, you begin to pull the bulkhead through. And if that happens, it may leak. It's not the thickest plastic, so just be gentle. If you do it too tight, you'll actually feel the bulkhead begin to pull through, so just a little bit of a heads up. Alright, we have 13 of these to install, so let's just get them done. So our fittings are in and sealed. I've let the RTV harden up for a few hours and we're ready to finish this off. Now if you look at our diagram, we can see exactly the size piping that we need. We need 4 7-inch, 4 10-inch, 4 3-inch, 1 18-inch. So let's get what we already know we need cut up, and then we can get the last few pieces as we go. Normally I use a PVC cutter for this because it just makes it so much easier, but I can't find mine, so I thought I would use this razor, but it's also super dull, so I ended up struggling with this pair of cutters. They're probably dull by now, but it got the job done. So we're ready to put everything together, starting out with the middle pieces first. Then we can add our smaller end tubing. And now we're ready for some fittings. We have elbows and T's here. The elbows are for the corners, obviously, and then we have the T's to connect the two sides together. One thing I will say is do not order this fitting off of Amazon. You will get the wrong size, believe me. The website I've linked below has all the fittings you will need, and they'll be the right size. Alright, everything is pretty much together tubing wise. I know it looks crooked, but that's because the tubing needs to straighten out, and that will happen over time. I had to make a small adjustment over here, so normally the res tubing would go up and out, but we didn't have enough space, so it actually comes back and then goes over this tube, which isn't ideal, but it will work. And in the back we have a T, which comes off at 1-inch tubing, but then dumbs down to a 1/2 inch and goes back into the res where the pump is. Now you may be noticing that I keep my pump in the res. In other systems you may see sometimes have an external pump. And we could do that here. There are upsides to it, as the pump doesn't warm the water up at all. But I don't really have a problem with water temps, even with the pump in the res. The real reason I don't do that is because I'm afraid of getting a pump leak. The way I have it set up, if the pump leaks, well, it's gonna leak right into the res and there'll be no problem. If I had an external pump and it leaked, well, it could very well go through the floor onto my first floor. So to each its own. If that's not a worry to you, run an external pump. Either way, when it comes to picking a pump for your system, it's going to depend on the capacity of the system you make. You want your water to circulate at least 7 times an hour. So if the system is 30 gallons, you'll want a 210 gallon per hour pump or something close to that. Alright, so I think we are ready for water. First 5 gallons is going in and is looking good so far. I love watching it fill up for the first time. Let's take a quick peek and then add another 5 gallons. We are looking pretty dry, so green light. Alright, so we fired the pump on, circulating the water, and we're still dry, so we are good. We can now add the air stones and the air lines and the air pump. So I upgraded the pump in here. Before we were using a smaller one, so I upgraded to an industrial type one, like the one we're using in the flower area. And then I decided to run the pump outside of the tent. These ones do give off a bit of heat, so it's best to just get them out of the way. Also, side tip here, hang your pumps with a bungee cord from the ceiling to kill back some of the noise and vibration they put off. The pumps are easily the loudest thing in this room, so hanging them up makes a huge difference if you need to keep the racket down. And alright, there was one thing I wasn't prepared for today. I thought these buckets were small enough on the top to fit the net pot on without a lid. And I was kind of right, but I was wrong at the same time. They fit a little bit too perfectly, and if they're moved at all, you get light in the corner. So I will be ordering the bucket tops for these buckets, and then we will just have to cut a hole in the top, slide the net pot through. That way there won't be any movement on the lid, and the roots can have the nice dock area that they want. Alright, so it's move-in day. So we have 6 babies from Exotic Genetics. They are slaps, so it is runts crossed with grease monkey. They're about 10 days old now, so they are ready to go. We'll put a light letter of hydroton, then our seedlings right on top, and we'll fill in around her. And that is pretty much it. Now, there is no roots in the water, obviously, just yet. As you can see, I keep my water level under the net pot so we can maintain that nice moist air gap. Which means for the next few days, we'll have to top feed in here until we have some roots swimming in the water. And I think that is pretty much it, boys. We have a new system and square buckets, and the next run is moved in. So I hope this helps if you're thinking about making your own system. If you have any questions or concerns, comment down below. I'll do my best to help you out. Alright everyone, stay up, stay high. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks, don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.